Hello everyone. My name is Rosa Trevis.
My name is Zuo Gutierrez.
And I'm Talon Kettering.
And we're group 3 and our project was the R2D2V2 2020. So the main overview of this project was to use this specific R2D2 robot that Copilia provided for us. We wanted to add some arms to it in order to be able to accomplish tasks that it can't do just on its own from Copilia. So the motivation behind this project was to improve the robot, since, like I said, there was no arms, and we were inspired to be able to help individuals specifically that that may need assistance.
So like Rosa was talking about, the primary objective here is to get the R2D2 template to actually pick up objects. I think we've all seen Star Wars in this class. The only kind of arms R2D2 really portrays in the films is some sort of like stick or rod. It's like open doors or press buttons. So we wanted this template to actually be able to lift objects with some sort of like clamping arm mechanism. So that's pretty much what the primary objective, just to give a nice quick overview here, was to implement some usable arms for the R2D2 template, be able to move these arms to grasp some sort of object in Copilia Sim, and then to be able to grab the object using the MATLAB code that we built. And then the description there, just kind of what I've already gone over, right? We want to have these arms just lift up components, and we want to demonstrate that it can, in fact, move objects. There's just a quick component list. So right off the bat, we pulled the kinematic steampunk R2D2 template from Copilia in the robotics section. We utilized 2 force sensors, and then we utilized a lot of prismatic joints to get some articulation going. And then to make some of those arms, we utilized a lot of cuboids, as you'll see here in a minute. And then the lifting object we are using in our simulation video here in a couple minutes is a cylinder, a small little cylinder. And then this is just the code flowchart breakdown. So obviously you have the start of the simulation there at the very top. And then after that, we define our left and right arm. This is kind of mirroring our simulation video we're going to show you guys, but obviously you can have some variation with this depending on how you script it. But for the video, this is what it's going to look like. So we define both our arms. And as you can see, the left arm there just goes straight down to just moving his little finger claws that you'll see. And then he's just going to clap because his hand will be empty. And then the arm on the right will define his arm. He'll open his wrist, move his shoulder down, close his wrist around an object, and then he'll be able to pick it up. And like I said, we'll see that in a couple minutes. So this is the MATLAB code that's going to be running for the simulation. So just to kind of break it down real quick for you guys, the non-highlighted portion there at the top is just defining the arms in Copilia, or in MATLAB, excuse me. As you can see, we're defining the left and right arm there. And then the yellow highlighted portion is the simulation of the arm that's going to be picking up the object. And then this portion of the code is going to be just the left hand, or the empty hand, that's going to be moving its fingers and clapping. And again, you can have some variation here, but this is just what we decided to do just for simplicity's sake.
Okay, and then so here's our video to kind of give a little rundown of, examining the robot itself. So we have, of course, the arms on both sides, which allow it to move up and down. On top of that, we have the joint, which allows us to do that. And so with the legs that the template already has, we were able to implement a base with those legs in order to get the movement using the joint. And then we decided we wanted it to be able to move kind of shoulder as well as wrists and fingers in order to kind of make picking up things a little simpler. So we've got a joint here, which allows it to kind of move in different areas. If it goes too far back, of course, it breaks. So we have a limit point to how far back the shoulder can move. And then, of course, we've got 2 separate joints for the wrist since we want to move them both. Originally, we were going to use one and see if we could do that, but we weren't able to use one joint to control both of the wrist sections here. And then lastly, we have 2 for the fingers and have that cooperated on both sides. And so it had already opened its wrist, and so now it's just going to clamp on the object, redirect it upwards because, you know, we obviously want it to just pick it up, not just slide it around or anything, and then have it move to the other position. And then the other arm just kind of demonstrating the finger joints and everything else. They'll open up and it'll kind of give itself an applause there. So there were some key problems encountered. Originally, part of our plan was to control the R2D2's movement. So the reason that this became an issue is we weren't able to get the robot to move itself. Within the base, it has, you know, its own script, which we learned, you know, previously during the labs, but we were having trouble trying to incorporate that script that was already in the robot. And I'll have an example of this. The reason for this is there's a user interface implemented already on the robot, and we were having issues either trying to integrate that interface that was already there and move it to control the movements of the robot. And we were also having issues trying to hit that function that's in the script and trying to use that directly in order to be able to move it. We actually couldn't end up figuring it out. We even sought help for this. And then our second problem is being able to have the robot pick it up autonomously. So this was suggested to us. So the sensors we mentioned, the template has the sensors on its right sides as well as in front of it. The issue we had with this is for some reason we couldn't pick up the object that was in front of it with the sensors. We couldn't pick up that there was an object there. We kept having issues with it, and one of the biggest reasons was there was a kind of gap area within, you know, kind of the sides of the robot where we actually ended up having the object placed. And in that gap area, since we couldn't get the velocity or the motion of the robot from the user interface or that script, we couldn't adjust it to move around to look for the object itself. So here's the example of the user interface that we were talking about. We really wanted to be able to implement, seeing if we could edit this using MATLAB code. And in researching it, we ended up learning a lot about actually being able to implement user interfaces, but we couldn't seem to figure out how to edit them that were already pre-existing using MATLAB specifically. So in learning experience, the biggest thing that we'd have to say definitely was probably that user interface was our biggest issue, and honestly the biggest gamble in terms of using this template. It definitely gave us a lot of problems, and we did spend a lot of time researching and seeking for help as well. But the thing that we did learn about it was in researching it, we learned implementation of it. We learned that we could actually use that on other objects, and it's something with us having just learned Copavia and not having a whole lot of experience with it at all, or controlling objects using MATLAB in general, it was something that was really great to learn. Another thing was the importance in the physical properties. We had, of course, like the arms and the wrists, and whenever we'd run the simulations, we'd run into problems where perhaps maybe the wrist was a little too heavy, so it essentially collapsed. And then, of course, the other biggest issue was, you know, we need the object to be able to be something that could be picked up or something that can be moved in general. Lastly was the implementation of the sensors. So of course, we had done a previous lab on it. And in looking into it, it was something really great to learn and something we really wish we got to implement a lot more. But running into that template and not being able to add that sensor within the template itself was definitely something that came to hit us, but it was something good to get into and to look into. So that's all we have. If there's any questions for us.